Welcome to this video. In this video, we discuss about the Indian diaspora in the West. Indian diaspora is the largest diaspora in the world today. And not only that, Indian diaspora is the fastest growing diaspora in the world. It spreads across 125 countries in the 6 continents of the world. It's better known for its contributions to the host societies, not just host societies, even in the home country, that's India. Especially the economic contributions made by the Indian diaspora in the host countries are remarkable. So, Indian diaspora is, in many countries, a major influential force. We can see the examples of Canada and other countries. There are several phases in which the Indian diaspora has evolved. We can identify 3 major phases. First is the ancient and medieval period. Second is the colonial period. And the third one is the post-colonial period. In the ancient and medieval period, it is almost around 1 AD, the first AD, when the gypsies from India have migrated to Eastern Europe and then part of Greece as part of trade. They were trade diasporas. During the 17th and 18th centuries, Indians migrated to Central Asia and Russia. They were also part of trade diasporas or merchant diaspora. So, Indian merchant diaspora is the forerunner in Indian diasporas. And as we have seen, they were mostly either traders or merchants or bankers. And Indian diaspora evolved gradually during the 19th and 20th century. Indian diaspora developed gradually during the 19th and 20th century, especially during the colonial administration. There was a ban on slavery at that time, and the ban on slavery has resulted in acute shortage of labor force in the colonies, especially in the plantation sector and construction sectors. So that paved the way for bringing people to the colonies as indentured labor. Indentured labor means contractual labors. So, immigration of indentured or contract labor, traders, professionals, students, etc., took place to the British, French, Dutch, and Portuguese colonies in Asia, Africa, and Far Eastern countries. So, under colonialism, Indian diaspora substantially grown because the largest number of people were recorded in the colonies as indentured labor. And what happened in the post-World War? After World War II, many Indians migrated to the Western European countries and also American countries. While at the very same time, some moved to Australia and New Zealand. There was also migration to the West Asian Gulf countries or the GCC countries. So immediately after the World War II, migration happened to the Western Europe, America, and Australia, New Zealand, etc. And with the oil boom, that's the oil price, increase in the oil price that happened in the first half of 1970s. The GCC or the oil producing Gulf countries, they started massive construction of infrastructure and other buildings, other constructions that really needed a huge labor force. Since these countries were short of labor force, populations, they had to rely on immigrant labor especially from the Asian countries and African countries. So this has pushed open a new path of migration. And Indians were at the forefront in utilizing this opportunity. Thus, also from people from Kerala, also they were also in the leading position in this flow of migrations. And the Gulf migration was a peculiar migration in various counts, because it's a mixture of unskilled, semi-skilled, and highly skilled professionals. So all types of people were recruited to the Gulf regions. And after 1990, there has been a wave of migration of software engineers to the European and North American countries. With the development of ICT and ICT-based industries, technology industries, information and communication industries, there emerged a great demand for software professionals, and Indians were at the forefront in capitalizing this opportunity, and they moved on to the European and American countries as software engineers. During the British rule, many Indian soldiers were brought to fight in the world wars, 2 world wars. They were taken from the colonies to other colonies, and they were taken from other colonies to the Great Britain. So there happened several movements with regard to related to the World War under the colonial administration of British. In 1918, the number of the soldiers was 1 million. In 1990, during the First World War. But by 1945, by the time of the Second World War, it has rose to 2.5 million, huge increase. It increased more than 2.5 folds. So the number of Indians moved on to the British colonies and British administration as soldiers increased many folds. And many people, even after the World War II, they stayed back in Great Britain and formed a significant portion of the Indian diaspora in the UK. So in this way, the Indian migrants to the Europe can be divided into two types. First is the Indians from India, that is Indian soldiers directly gone to the Britain from India. And second is the Indians from other European colonies. For example, Indians from Singapore or Malaya, from Indonesia, or from different African countries. First they were taken to the British colonies, and from that British colonies they moved on to Britain. So these people are called as twice migrants because they migrated twice, first from India to any of the British colonies and from there to Britain. And Indian diaspora has a significant presence in the United States of America. The US is a major destination today of the Indian migrants, and the Indian diaspora is a very significant contributor of American economy, especially the software industries are predominantly dominated by the Indian software professionals. This Indian diaspora in the United States, they are highly educated and economically successful. They are professionally qualified software engineers. And they are integrated well into the US economy and in US society, even though they maintain strong ties with their homeland. So integration is not a serious problem for the Indian diaspora in the US. And they are instrumental in the development of the IT industry in the US. Take any industry, whether it's Google or Yahoo or Infosys or Microsoft or any IT sector industries, Indians are at the forefront of, at the key positions. They also were key in building up Indian IT industry through skill transfer, circular migration, and transnational investments. They are key. They played a key role in the establishment of Indian IT industries in both in India and in the US or elsewhere. So now the Indian diaspora in the US is 2.6 million. That comes around 4.8% of the US immigrant population. So we have a significant, Indians have a significant presence in the US. And out of this 2.6 million, around 69% are foreign born because they are the second generation migrants. They are born and brought up in the US itself. And the major locations of the Indian diaspora in the US is the Indian diaspora is widespread across the US. There's not even a single state without the Indian presence. All the 50 states in the US have Indian presence. But the largest concentrations are found in California, New Jersey, and Texas. And also, when we look at the metropolitan areas, New York City is the home to the largest number of Indian population, followed by Chicago, Washington, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. The socioeconomic characteristics of Indian diaspora in the US. They are highly educated and better placed. The Indian diasporas are highly, and they have a educational achievement that is far above the achievement of US national average. So they are better educated. Due to this advantage in education and professional skills, they began to dominate the IT and other knowledge industries. Indian diaspora hold advanced degrees 4 times the rate of the US average. So when we come to the higher education, securing higher degrees, the achievement of Indian diaspora is much better than or greater than the US average rate. Also, the households of Indian diaspora have more annual income than the US average. So all these show that Indian diasporas are the fastest growing and fastest prospering diaspora in the US. 1/4 of Indian diaspora households are in the top 10% of the US households. So this is significant. And so how they have achieved, how prospering Indian diaspora is wonderful. 79% of the Indian diaspora aged 25 and above have at least a bachelor's degree, while only 31% of the US population have this. So much above the average, huge difference in the educational achievement of Indian diaspora. 79% of the Indian diaspora aged 25 or above have at least a bachelor's degree, minimum a bachelor's degree. And again, 69% of the Indian diaspora aged 16 and above have entered in the workforce. So they are highly, the work participation of Indian diaspora is commendable at 69%. And also, the diaspora organizations, the Indian diaspora is at a commendable position in organizing themselves. There are significant presence of diaspora organizations. The Indian diasporas have numerous well-organized, well-funded associations across the US. They are involving in philanthropy in education and healthcare in India. They are always active in business and professional networks, in forming business and professional networks. And they are also actively promoting Indian culture and language abroad in the US. So while some of these organizations are having a pan-American, pan-Indian or pan-South Asian standing, others are much narrow in their outlook. Some organizations are bigger and they involved or engage on a national level, but others are very narrow. The organizations are with having narrow scope. And political involvement. Indian diaspora has been increasingly involved in the US politics, like like the Indian diaspora involves in the Canadian politics. The diaspora organizations raise the voice of Indian communities on many issues. The white paper issued by the Canadian government in 1960 shows that or states that there will be no discrimination in immigration by reason of race, color, or religion. So Canada is inviting people, it's welcoming people from across the globe. Canada has evolved from a nation openly advocating racial discrimination to a multicultural landscape. So it is the most important, one of the most important multicultural societies in the world. And this change is reflected on its immigration policies. It has liberalized its immigration policy, inviting people from all across the globe. The Canadian citizens of Indian origin have established in a wide range of areas. They have established in social, economic, political, and cultural spheres in the nation. The Indian diaspora now can influence India-Canada relations. That is much evident in the current issues. Indian diaspora in Germany. In early 20th century, Germany attracted Indian independent fighters and students. So many people, so many freedom fighters and students moved from India they were attracted to Germany in the early 20th century. So Indian students continued to migrate to Germany even after the World War. So Germany, even today, continues to be a major destination for Indian students. By 1950s, Indian workers too started migrating, especially the Catholic nurses from Kerala. The Catholic nurses from Kerala have a significant presence in Germany. Both these categories completely integrated into the German society. It's predominantly a settlement migration, and Germany welcomes people from across the globe, and Indians are utilizing this opportunity to move on to Germany and settle down there. And health professionals are a major category of people who are settling down in Germany. After 2000, Germany liberalized this migration policy it has attracted the highly skilled workers, researchers, entrepreneurs, and students in large numbers. This has resulted in the settlement of highly skilled Indians, especially highly skilled women migrants in Germany. Indian diaspora in Britain. The colonial ties and economic opportunities created the Indian diaspora in the UK. The Indian community in the UK is highly diverse. They come from varying regions in India, and also they have a different language background. They hail from different religions and different cultures. So the Indian diaspora in the UK itself is a complex and multicultural complex composition. And many of this diaspora, many of the people in the Indian diaspora in the UK came as students to UK to study there, and eventually they started working there. After Indian independence, there has been a significant increase in the Indian diaspora in the UK. The Indian migration to the UK has grown many-folds after independence. The Indian diaspora in the UK, they contribute to the business, finance, arts, literature, sports, politics, and an array of fields in the UK. It has also established strong social and cultural networks both within the UK and in between UK and India. Also, it promotes the celebration of festivals. It promotes traditions, Indian traditions. It promotes Indian food. It promotes Indian languages in the UK. After all, Indian culture is promoted in the UK and prospered in the UK. Indian cuisine, as a result, as I told, Indian cuisine, Indian music, Indian dance, Indian fashion, etc. have become an integral part of British culture. And Indian diaspora in Australia. Australia is also upcoming Indian diaspora. In 2021, Indian community in Australia was over 7 lakh. It is one of the largest ethnic groups in Australia. And the Indians contribute to various sectors like education, healthcare, technology, business, arts, etc. Australia has a significant number of Indian students. It's also partially due to the soft power exercised by Australia in attracting students, international students from across the world. And Indian students are a larger number of immigrant students in Australia. France also has a significant number of Indian diaspora. In 2000, there was an estimated 65 Indians in France. In addition to the 3 lakh Indians in the French overseas regions, including French Guyana, as part of the colonial administration, colonial rules. The majority of the Indian community hails from Puducherry, that is current Pondicherry, and Chandan which were the former French colonies of India, colonies in India. Later, Gujaratis and Keralites also arrived and joined part of the Indian diaspora in France. So we can say Indian diaspora has a large presence in Europe. Europe is the largest single economy in the world. So Indian diaspora is one of the most advancing diasporas in Europe. Though spread across Europe, higher concentration of Indian diaspora is visible in the western part of Europe. Indian diaspora constitutes 5 to 8% of the total population of Europe. And UK has the single largest Indian diaspora in the Europe due to the historical reasons. So the significant portion of the Indian diaspora in the Europe is situated in UK alone. Indian diaspora is the largest and fastest growing one in Canada. The IT industry in the US is dominated by the Indian diasporas. Australia too has a significant presence of Indians. Indian healthcare workers have a remarkable share in all these countries. So Indian diaspora is very much significant in all these Western countries and also in Australia. That's the exception.